Hello, welcome to Holy Tea with Ellen this week of November 11th. I'm glad that you're here today with me. We're going to talk a little bit about what it means to be a neighbor, to love your neighbor. We know that Jesus said that is the greatest commandment, to love God and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so this week, both our church school kids who are learning about the story of the Good Samaritan, and our confirmation students in 8th grade who are learning about the neighbor and that same story of the Good Samaritan are having these conversations, asking questions like, what does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? How do you feel when you love your neighbor? How do you think God feels when we love our neighbor? And those kinds of things. Whenever I think about being a good neighbor, I always think of Fred Rogers, of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He had a lot of good things to say about being a neighbor and what love looks like and what love means. So I'm going to share with you just one quote that he had. He said, "Love isn't a state of perfect caring. It is an active noun, like struggle. To love someone is to strive to accept that person exactly the way he or she is, right here and now." I like that reframing of the idea of love, because sometimes when we talk about love, it feels very flowery and soft and this very easy thing. It's just being nice. But that isn't actually what love means and how it works in our lives. It's a struggle sometimes to love people exactly as they are right now, because maybe we want them to do something differently or do something better than they did before. And we can still have expectations of people, but to love people means to love them as God created them to be. One of the challenges I'm setting for my confirmation kids this week is to make a list of ways that we can love our neighbor. I find that making it really concrete brings it down out of the air, this cloud of love that kind of hovers about us, but into this incarnate living thing that we live and breathe. So if I'm asking others to do it, I figured I should do it myself. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of the list of ways to love my neighbor this week. I can love my neighbor by being patient with people in public. I can love my neighbor by sharing my snacks with the neighbor kids who play at my house. I can love my neighbor by attending a parent meeting at school tonight. I can love my neighbor by calling my stepmom to check and see how she's doing. I can love my neighbor by reaching out to a lonely friend. I can love my neighbor by saying thank you. I can love my neighbor by driving the speed limit. And I can love my neighbor by being a mentor. Some of those examples may not surprise you, and some may. You may say, Ellen, how is driving the speed limit loving your neighbor? Well, if I'm being safe, then that keeps my neighbor safe as well. So that's why some of these rules are in place to help us in a loving posture. Attend the parent meeting at school. That's good for my community, and it may not be something that I actually want to do. But if loving my neighbor means that I show up for an hour at the end of my day to talk with other parents about what's best for our community, then that's, sometimes that's what we do. And just saying thank you whenever you have an opportunity can go a long way. People want to know that you appreciate them and the place that they hold in your lives. So some of these are pretty easy, but that's okay. It's good to just even make a list and write down and give yourself something to look at, something concrete that you can point to. But also, love isn't always concrete, and it isn't always easy, but it is what we're called to do. And God is with us and helping us, and the church is here to support us in the loving of neighbor. So my challenge to you this week is to make your own list of ways that you can love your neighbor, and then check them off. Do them. Small acts of kindness and love have a big impact, even if it's just the one life of the person who you said thank you to. So I thank you for being here with me today, and go in peace and love your neighbor.